Personal professional learning or dependency professional learning? Are you creating a dependency in your professional learning environment? Are you expecting people to lead and guide you and waiting for experts to tell you what to do? Or are you taking the initiative personally to grow and to explore and take charge and control of your own professional learning? As a educator, as a digital educator, I think it's our responsibility to take that initiative and be responsible for our own personal professional learning. And more importantly, are you creating an environment of dependency in your learning environment, or are you encouraging your learners to become personal professional learners themselves? Welcome to another Learner's Mindset discussion. My colleague, Dr. Bedard and I will be exploring an interesting topic, a very important topic today. We're going to be looking at the difference between personal professional learning and dependency professional learning. You might not have heard these terms. Well, that's because we kind of made up the prefixes to them very recently. And just to give you more of an overview, what we're really looking at is when you look at personal professional learning, you're looking at taking responsibility and exploring, experimenting, and you're taking ownership of your learning. And you're doing it in ways that you have to focus on and you are accountable for, and you're taking the initiative. In contrast, a lot of professional learning that we have in the educational side, environment, or in the corporate world or around us is dependency based in the sense that you go somewhere and take a course, or you take a course online. You're taking a course, you sit in, you take the instructions, and then if you want to learn more, you have to go back and get more, right? I call that the dependency model. And this is a shift that we hope people will make in terms of move to a personal professional learning model, because it's going to move you closer to what I refer to as learner's mindset. And that's where you take ownership of your learning. And to do that, you've got to change your thinking about learning. You have to change your approach to learning. You have to take into account the bigger learning environment. So we're going to go down that path today. Okay. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a story, and it's about one of my favorite topics, one of my boys, my younger son, who runs his own customization business. He customizes cars, exotic cars. He vinyl wraps, changes suspension, wheels. He makes cars are his canvas, and he creates works of art with vehicles. Well, he's also into off-road trucking. He's also into exploring and experimenting, and he's always learning something new. And he bought a Toyota truck because he wanted to turn it into an off-road Baja vehicle. And he was going to cut some fenders off. He was really going to customize it a little bit more than he normally does. And he wanted to put a really cool bumper on the front. And as he was looking at these bumpers, boy, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a bumper. But he found a few companies that would actually sell you a kit, and then you had to weld it together. And so he went and bought one of these kits, still spent a bit of money, and then he probably used a quarter of the kit, and then he figured out he was going to customize it, drew up some plans, and then he was going to figure out how to weld while he was going to build this bumper. He had never welded before, but he had lots of friends who were welders, and so he borrowed a welding device and explored, experimented, and played around for 2 or 3 days, and 3 weeks later, or actually 2 weeks later, he had welded an amazing bumper that is unique, fully customized, and was exceptionally well done. His welding buddies were just shocked at the quality of welding. It's all about laying down a bead, right? You're joining two pieces of metal. And my son Caleb had a wonderful time. And he said to me, "Dad, it was just great. I learned so much about welding. But I think the most important thing that I learned is that I'm never going to do it again. I don't like it. And I'll just hire somebody to do it. But I needed to know how to do it. Because now, when I go to hire somebody, I know if they're going to be good or not." That's a good example of somebody who lives in this realm of personal professional learning. My boys grew up in this environment of learner's mindset, and any obstacle, any challenge, they're not interested in taking a course. They're not interested in connecting to somebody in a dependency model. They want to do it on their own. Now, they don't do it in isolation. In my story, they contacted friends. there's YouTube videos. They never do anything alone. Learning is always a collaborative endeavor, but they take the responsibility, they take the ownership, and then they tap into resources as they go along. They tap into their learning communities. They tap into networks of people that they know in order to be able to do these things. Now, my son's story is important to us because as educators, we can actually help our learners move into this realm of the personal professional learning, or we can hinder them by creating a dependency model of professional learning. This is where we're going today. So, Sue, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Well, first, I like the idea that I don't want to weld anymore. That was pretty cool. And I have to say, I have done many, many things that I thought I was really going to like, where I learned how to do XYZ, and then it came right down to it. I don't really want to do this. But I do think it's important, especially with our digital and the technology that we have available, that everyone learns how to learn versus told how to learn or told the information. I think it's critical that we are able to figure out where we want to be or do and then find the resources to do that. And like you say, isolation is not one of them.
Yeah, all too often, the way our school systems work, you might study with somebody, but you write the test by yourself, you write the paper by yourself. There's a competition, and then you go out in the real world and you realize you're supposed to work with people.
Right.
What? Yeah, it's really. I don't understand why we model the wrong things. That collaboration, that communication, those networks. Like I said with my son's example, this is the life that he lives. This is the world he lives in. Now, I'm the same way. I will tackle anything, but man, if I'm dealing with a Unix problem or a web problem or a WordPress problem, I have two or three guys I can text, and these are experts, and they will
Hmm.
have a solution in seconds. Okay, if I'm dealing with a DaVinci Resolve problem or a graphics problem, I've got other people I can text or contact. If I'm dealing with a office problem, and I've got a friend who's an expert when it comes to spreadsheets and macros. I'm on the phone or I'm text message or whatever or a chat,
Right.
right? Quick Zoom. So I've learned that I can't know it all, but I know the right people to call when I run into trouble. Now, normally I'll spend a bit of time on YouTube or lynda.com or whatever resource, but I've learned very quickly that if I'm beating my head against the wall for longer than 30 minutes, I might need to call
Time to
somebody.
move on.
Now, I'm getting to the point now where I start to call in 50 minutes. But what I have learned is that I need to know enough about the problem to be able to ask them an intelligent question and not waste their
Yes.
time. I don't go to these people and say, "Oh, I'm using this new template, and can you tell me how it works?" Well, I've never seen the template, but you
Right.
can't do that. You have to be able to say, my plugin Burberry does this in this template, and I think it's because of another plugin that I have. Have you ever run into that? And I'll go, "Oh man, yeah, don't use that plugin. Use this other one because it's interfering with your template,
Right.
and it messes up the cascading style sheets." Oh, okay. I thought that with and in minutes they help me resolve the problem. But you have to know enough about the problem to be able to talk about it intelligently. And I know you and I have
Very
talked
true.
about this, and what we're talking about is a form of just-in-time learning, often called just-in-time training. And we've talked about this before. And you and I work at a different level, but we do the same thing. And
Yep.
you have taught technology courses, you have taught audio media courses, and
Hmm.
you're not formally trained in it. You're not. How did you
Nope.
get? How did you learn all those things that you were able to actually help? Work in some of the technology type instruction that you've done. How many courses have you taken on that?
Uh, Courses. Uh, Zero
Uh huh.
courses. I don't
Yeah.
think I've taken any. So I started with an elementary degree and I moved up to teach high school because I wanted to coach basketball. So I really didn't have any high school experience except I was coaching basketball, girls basketball. And they didn't really know what kind of course I could teach because I did come on to coach basketball, but I needed to teach something. So, anyways, I told them, I says, I really like the computer stuff. Like, I like using Office. I liked drawing on the computer, which was, back in the late 90s. So it was not as nice as it is today. Let's put it that way. Podcasting was one of them. It wasn't called podcasting, but we were going to make a radio show. But I had no idea. But I wanted to do it. So we just dug into, I think at that time it was just finding content that would help us. We'd go to business websites to purchase our equipment, our very cheap microphone and a little mixer board, and their site would help us a little bit. And then their company people would help us a little bit. And then it just came to trial and error. What does this do? How do we do that? Let's do this. The first video camera that we got for the school, we were doing web design, and I told the kids, okay, here's the camera. I don't know how it works. I need you to go sit down with it, and in 20 minutes, you have to come back and show me what you did. So I guess it had an editing feature inside of it, very simple one. Or maybe they pulled it off and put it on the computer. I don't exactly remember. All I know, in about 20 minutes, I saw a kid jumping off the second floor, landing on the ground in the video. And I'm like, you did not jump off the balcony. It looked like they jumped off the balcony, but they didn't. They did it in stages. And they had the kid jumping up on the ground. It was amazing. So I asked them, have you guys ever used video cameras before? Not a single one had. They just stood out there and kept playing and figuring it out and trying and doing, and then someone was editing. And so that's just part of who I am. Like, I just like to explore stuff. If I have a need, I'm going to go out and do it. If I want to find a quilting pattern that's going to work, or a sew machine, or a microphone, I just find what I need to help me through, or people to help me through.
It's interesting that you talk about these kids who hadn't worked with a video.
Kids are awesome.
Yeah. And the reason they're awesome is that they're not afraid to press the button to say, what does this button do?
Yep.
And the reason this is really important to me is that my research for my doctorate and my doctoral thesis was called the inquisitivism, what does this button do approach to learning. So I researched how people learn. I'm a learning theorist. I've been studying learning for a long time. And I found out very quickly that the natural capacity, that intrinsic capacity that we have to learn has always been there. All you got to do is look at a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and your new grandson, right? Even how many months now? Like, we're talking short time, right?
5 months maybe.
Okay. The eyes, the exploration, right? Reaching the whole world is new, and he is just exploring. And then as soon as he can talk, why? How's this? What about this? It just goes on and on. There's this natural intrinsic capacity we have. I refer to that as a learner's mindset. And that doesn't go away until we sort of put people in a formal school setting and let them know that asking questions isn't what they need to do. They need to find the answer because a teacher asks the questions or the book asks the questions, and then you find the answer that's at the back of the book that you are not supposed to look at, and give it to them in an essay, in a test, or some type of an assignment. And so this natural curiosity and capacity to learn, this natural inquisitivism that we have, is quenched. Now, fortunately, as humans, we've got it's quenched, which means it doesn't go away. And we can reignite that. And all we have to do is get people to think about learning as opposed to becoming dependent on somebody else to teach you. And then you shift your approach to learning where you take ownership, give students choice, ownership, and voice. And then you create a significant learning environment where all that comes together, where you do real projects if you're an educator, and you help to stimulate that natural learner's mindset through choice, ownership, and voice. And ownership is a key piece in this thing that we're talking about. And this is where also ownership comes into play when you connect with personal learning environments or personal learning communities, whatever you want to call that. Learning communities is there's a group of people who are experts in a certain area. In order to engage with them and not look like a newbie, right, or a normie or whatever you want to call it, because you'll if you connect with some of these communities and you're asking questions, and if you ask a stupid question that shows you haven't actually even read anything, they'll say, listen, there's a newbie section, go read this, these couple of posts in the newbie section, and then come back after, they let you know that, listen, we're willing to work with you, but you have to have...
You gotta up your game.
Yeah, you've got to up your game. And all they're asking you to do is take some initiative, explore and read, and maybe you can find your answer without having to talk to somebody because it's one of those rudimentary answers that is on the second page of the manual if you crack the manual. It's that type of a thing. And right now, so many people are so dependent upon, tell me what I need to do. Where's the checklist, right? We've got step-by-step instructions on everything. And so when you go to these professional learning communities, you have to have taken some responsibility so you can ask those intelligent questions. I mentioned earlier, I've got a variety of different people that I will connect with. And when I go to talk to them, these are people who charge a ridiculous amount of money per hour. These are experts, some of the best experts in their fields. And I know I can get a complex or an answer to a complex problem in minutes if I do my due diligence and enter into the
Right.
conversation with them and ask them something intelligent. And they'll go, oh, yeah, ran into that before. This is how you solve it. They respect me. They're willing to take my call. They're willing to take my text. They're willing to communicate with me because I've done my due diligence. I've done my work. I respect them by investigating things and taking ownership of my own learning so that I can ask them intelligent questions. And this is another aspect of moving away from that, personal or adopting the personal professional learning format as opposed to the dependency professional
Hmm.
learning where you depend on somebody else. Now, listen, sometimes a course can be good and are going to take, you might need to take a course on something. But in the world that we live in today, if you're working with technology, I'm constantly uploading or downloading the latest version of DaVinci Resolve. A new camera just came out. The next iteration, I'm dying to buy it. And I'm going to have to go through a whole learning curve. But am I going to have to take a course on this new video camera? No, it's still a
No.
camera. There's controls, there's lenses, there's a menu system. It's just a matter of familiarizing myself with that. In the same way, when I buy a new vehicle, whether I'm driving Toyota Corolla, Nissan Sentra, or a Honda Civic, you don't take a course on driving that particular vehicle. You hop in and enjoy the new car smell, and then you go, oh,
Where's the switch
what?
for the lights?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
here
no.
it
Hey,
is.
for me, it's the radio. That's a priority. Where's the
Oh,
radio? Are the controls in the steering wheel? Oh shoot.
right.
Didn't
My
think
my
about
new
that one.
car had Apple Play.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what that was. So I plugged in my phone to charge it, and there it appeared. I went, "Oh, what is this?" Because my husband does all the car thing. I just want comfort, something that'll drive and I can sit well in. So he didn't tell me about Apple Play. He does all the safety. Okay, this is kind of a good car. I'm not. If the car gets me from point A to B, I'm happy. So, anyways, I plug in the phone and Apple Play comes up, and now, of course, I'm driving. And I'm like, but I wanna look at that. Like, what? And then the music starts playing. Then the GPS came up, and then I had to actually pull over and spend a couple minutes with this because I was so intrigued by it. So then I called them up, and and then all of a sudden my voice is in my car. I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this? Yeah, but again, I could still drive the car, and I figured out Apple Play, which is amazing
No, and
if
here's
you have an
something
Apple phone.
important that you just said. As you're going along, you're going, oh, what does this do? What does this do? You pulled over and took
Yeah,
a few minutes to explore,
just a few.
right? Yeah, it doesn't take long. And then chances are you plugged your phone in. The next time you're going, um, maybe I can connect with Bluetooth and I don't even have to plug my phone in, right? And so there's next levels. So
Yep,
as you start to explore and experiment, you accomplish certain things and then you realize, wow, technology can really serve me. What else can it do?
that was kind of learning by accident because I only plugged my phone in to charge it
Yep.
because I had like an hour drive ahead of me, so I just wanted to charge it, and then I had to learn, so I had to stop, and I learned, and then I continued, um,
And that's what we're talking about,
just in time.
just in time. But not just the just in time notion, but the fact that, listen, I can do this. I know I
Right.
can do this. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to look. And let's say you struggle with something. You're going to be on the phone texting somebody or calling somebody. Hey, have you worked with this? So whenever I have the privilege of borrowing both my boys' vehicles at sometimes, and they have sophisticated stereo systems, and we all have decent phones and stuff. And so when I hop in different vehicles, I have an opportunity to connect to Bluetooth to this device and connect
Oh,
this here and
geez.
there. I can set certain presets, right? So my son had an Audi for a while. Oh, amazing cars! The luxury and the features were just shocking. And the things, I set it up so that when I sit in it, I press a button and the seat moves
The
to the
seat
position I
sets.
want, right? It sometimes just takes a few minutes to explore, and it can
Hmm.
make your life so much better. It can make the
Absolutely.
drive so much more efficient. So we're talking about technology and vehicles, but as educators, as professionals, as professional learners, we live in the most amazing time to be a learner. The things we can do on our phones are just shocking, right?
Hmm.
And you and I are developing this podcast, and I'm playing around with a 4K video right now, and I'm playing around with a whole bunch of other stuff. And I've got a new microphone above my head that I'm experimenting with. I've got a brand new interface that I've been experimenting with the last couple of months, right? And so all of these devices are tools that go away. You don't see them, right?
Hmm.
You might see my
Right.
headphone or my earbuds, but our audio is going to be relatively consistent, relatively good, and our images are going to be relatively good and consistent because good technology disappears and allows us to communicate, to share ideas, which
Hmm.
is what we do as humans. Learning is all about exploring, asking questions, investigating, and through a dialogue here, we're learning different things, we're reinforcing different things, right? The different experiences, and we use practical experiences like welding or
Right.
Google or Apple Play or Google Play, whatever device you're
Right. Whichever
using.
one, I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah, yeah, they actually are very similar. They are very similar. And it's
Right.
interesting to get into debates, which is better. But that's the
Ah.
exciting part because then these are tools that make our life better. And as
Hmm.
educators, we aren't necessarily preparing people for the test, or at least we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be.
Right. And that's another big part of this is that we have to prepare them to learn when they leave us. So if we make them dependent upon us, we haven't done our job. They can't go out and make a choice or a decision. My husband is the the most dependent thing person I know. Gets a new phone and he's like, "How do I turn it on?" Really? Back up, press some buttons. Or like the kids started telling him, "Dad, just try, just try. You can't break it. Just try." Because like he's at the mindset, I can't make a mistake, and someone needs to teach me. Where's the book? I need the book. So I see it every day in my house. I see it when I go out to the classroom. But my time is pretty valuable. My time is pretty valuable. I don't want to do a lot of repetitive things. I want those repetitive things taken care of. And then I want to learn so that I can even do a better job for my kids. But if they're not at that ability to figure out, problem solve, ask questions, I love the best question. Miss Sue, I need help. Okay, what do you need help with? I don't know. Okay, well, you let me know when you know, and then I'll come and try to help you. But until then, I'm not coming over there. And
Yeah.
they just look at me like, so eventually they figure out what their question is. It takes a while, but they figure it out because I hold my ground even though like 25 minutes has gone by. But over time, they start to figure out, like you were saying before, they prepare, they have some background knowledge. Now they know their question.
Yeah.
I'm stuck on this part. I don't understand what they're telling me. I say, okay, well, what's this word? And because they skipped that word, or they couldn't figure out what it meant, so they just skipped over it. I said, well, I think this word might be part of the problem. Let's look it up. So now I can say to him or her, remember, did you have any vocabulary that you were stuck with? Did you look it up? Oh yeah, hang on a second. Don't come over here. So they'll go back. Right. But I'm trying to teach them the problem solving, not give them the answer, not get to the certain point and have to ask me the question.
I think what you're talking about is so important, and I'm sure this has happened to you too, where Sue, Dr. Sue, can you help me with this? And what's the question? I'm not sure. And then there might be a time where 25 minutes pass, and then you say, "Is everything okay? I figured it out."
Right.
Oh,
Oh, that happens all the time.
exactly. And
But they don't
that
want to take the time to figure it out. And that's so important.
And you're preparing them for life. Yes, we do have to prepare them for the test. We're never going to get away from standardized testing in education. It's always going to be there. So you have to prepare people for the test, but you can do so by preparing them for life.
Mm-hmm.
And the better prepared they are for life, the more efficiently they will be in terms of preparing for the test. And they'll realize, oh, that's just sort of a certain part of the education system. Easy to
Right.
prepare for, easy to pass a test. And you can spend a small amount of time on that, but you can spend all your time on learning, on exploring, on investigation, making those meaningful connections. And that is what I refer to and in our applied digital learning program and other places where I teach as assessment as learning. We have to get our learners to the point where they can self-assess where they're at. And they
Right.
look at their learning opportunities as an opportunity to grow and to add to their body of knowledge and become more proficient. And being able to self-assess, problem shoot, where am I at? Where am I at? Did this, did this, did this. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I run into a problem right here. Okay, why is that? Work on it, work on it. Okay, Dr. Sue, I've done this, I've done this. I'm in this part of the program to get the robot to do this. And when I do it, I keep on running into difficult. What do you think is a problem? Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Did
Might be
you
a
try?
syntax.
Yeah.
Might be a syntax error. Okay, take a look. Your slash might have to be the other way, right? Oh, is that
So
it?
I had it's funny we're talking about this today because just the other day I had this example where this one of my students wrote a well, actually it was more than 5 paragraph story. It was amazing. So I said, okay, did you go back to the instructions and make sure you included all of the key parts? Like they had to have a dialogue and different lengths of sentences, just some grammar things and some
Yep.
storytelling things. Okay. No. I said, okay. Did you look at the rubric? Yes. Did you meet the rubric? I think so. I said, okay. But I want to start with the instructions. So we'll do it together and then I'm going to walk away and you finish. So we go over to the instructions. I said, oh, what's the prompt? Uh, I don't know. I said, wait a minute. You wrote this whole thing and you didn't start with step one? So there was a series of prompts. You could pick one, and then that's what you had to write your story on. So this child spent about 4 hours writing this amazing story that she could not submit for a grade. She was devastated.
Yep.
I said, this is really simple. This is on you. Before you start, you have to assemble all your ingredients. So ingredient number one was the prompt. Oh, well, the rubric just said to have 4 paragraphs, and I have 5. Okay, well, that's good. Except, yeah, I know, I didn't follow the directions. You didn't follow the main direction. You got the rest of it. So she had to not completely redo, but we had to modify some things. So we start the next assignment, and I said, okay, what's the first thing you need to do? Look at the instructions? Yes. Because she would just skip them.
Yeah.
Just skip them.
I I've been doing this for a long time. The gray hair comes honestly. Both you and I have been in this game for a little while. You look much younger
But
than
no
me, by
gray
the way.
hair.
Yeah. Anyways,
I could find some over here.
30, 40 years ago, we didn't use rubrics very much.
Right.
They're a relatively new addition to the educational system. And there's a lot of authors who have pointed to how ineffectual rubrics are because they enable people to sort of skip the actual learning process, which is looking at instructions and really figuring out what you need to do and sort of checking off a few boxes off a list and hoping that you can get there, right? There's a fair amount of research to show when it comes to writing instruction, rubrics are terrible because
Mm-hmm.
students really don't take a look at what they need to do. What is a prompt?
Exactly.
When I'm helping people with lesson planning, I use a BOPS model. It has a bridge and activity, which is a thing to capture people's attention. It's a hook,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a whole
It's a
process.
hook.
And if you don't actually follow the process and look at it and consider how your pieces are going to fit together, you can create a lesson plan, but it's not really going to be effective. But if you
Correct.
read the instructions, and so we have a tendency in education to skip the instructions and go to the rubric. And what tends to happen is that a lot of educators will realize it's a lot of work to keep on forcing students to go back to the instructions. So maybe I just expand the rubric as making it a more detailed checklist. And then students check off all the boxes
Right.
and they still are, what they've written is really horrible.
Not good.
Um, as opposed to taking a look at instructions with help you to understand that a story is getting people to enter into your world, and there's a process, there's a way to engage, there's a way
Right.
to entice drama and curiosity, and you can't do that in a checklist. You
No,
have to read the instructions and go through that. And now you're talking about kids. You and I teach in the same graduate program. We have the same problem
no
with
difference.
a lot of our educators, a lot of our teachers, because most of our educators have grown up in the rubric model,
Hmm.
and some of our students are annoyed with us because our rubrics are very general. We have 4 points in our rubrics.
Yep.
Did you use the information and content effectively?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot
Did
of
you
feedback I
cite?
get is the
Yeah.
rubric isn't very helpful.
Yeah. Exactly.
What do you mean it's not helpful? It helps me,
Yeah. It does, and
but it
that's what a
didn't
rubric
tell
is
me
for.
what to do. Oh, see, you're confused. That's called the instructions.
And so many of our educators today skip the instructions altogether and go to the rubric. And so, and you and I spend a lot of time working through instructions
Hmm.
to ensure they're as concise as possible. We don't want to waste people's time, but they really follow through. And if you spend just a modicum of time with the instructions, you will be able to create amazing things.
Hmm.
And so, what we're talking about is really helping our learners to break that dependency model, break that information transfer model, take ownership, take responsibility. And when you need to learn something, explore, experiment. Yeah, you know what? Go look at YouTube. Go look at lynda.com. And Lynda has little courses on things that you can subscribe to with some of these services. So there are ways that you can actually enhance your learning. We're not saying don't take a course. We're not saying don't call
Right.
somebody. No, learn enough about what you're not sure of to be able to ask an intelligent question. If you can go that far, quite often what ends up happening when you get to the point where you can ask an intelligent question, one more video or one more thing exposes what you're trying to do. But quite often people are, oh, I don't have this, I haven't had the training, or you're asking me to do this, and I've never done this before. Well,
So we
what we're
stop.
really asking you to do is to create something that might take you 10 to 15 minutes of preparation and probably 3 or 4 minutes to set up. So if you're willing to spend 20 minutes, it's going to give you this massive benefit.
Hmm.
And we have hesitancy in that because I think a lot of people are trapped in this dependency model of learning. So
Yeah, I think a lot of our students, early on in the program, of course, they come in and we have this COVA model where they take ownership and they keep asking, "What do you want?" I don't understand the question. What do I want? I want you to do something that is valuable for you in your workspace, your work environment, something that will help you. But what do you want me to give you? I want you to give me something that will help you in your workspace that you own. So it's just a circle. And fortunately, over time, I would say the majority of the students claim that ownership. They start realizing we don't want them just to spit back what we said to them. We want them to be authentic in their learning, in their problem solving, and find something that's going to help them fix something, change something, do something, help their learners in a very authentic way. And our rubrics, they're just not checklists. So you can't go and just, we don't want check. We want something that means something to you, not to me. Although for me, I might take your idea because it's a really good idea that I hadn't heard before. So I'll be learning as well.
yeah, what you're talking about is really important, and you getting people to recognize what they're creating is important to them. But also, what we do in the ADL program is we remind our learners that I'm not your audience.
Mm-hmm.
You're building this innovation plan. You're building this robotic club. You're building this computational thinking club. You're building this makerspace. You're building your e-portfolio strategy. You're building your blended learning initiative
Right.
for your learners and your community. So when you write your proposal, you have to take into account who your audience is. Now, as an expert, I can give you advice and coaching to see how well you've addressed your audience's needs, but you ultimately know who your audience are and what they need. And that's what we're asking them to create. So it does take a little while. And I found that since we used to run in the DLL program, since we shifted to the Applied Digital Learning program, we've incorporated this assessment as learning model. And I'm finding that students are moving more quickly to taking ownership of their learning than we did before. And it's not uncommon for a lot of students to be annoyed with
No.
me and
But that's
probably
that
you.
collaborative piece, I think. I think that we're really hitting that collaborative piece where you have to go talk to your peers. Yes, this is an online program, but you are not learning in isolation. You've got to find a comfortable group of people that you can share with. And I always give the example, when you're in your graduate work, no one knows the pressures and the anxiousness except you and your peers. Your spouses don't understand. So you want to have these people that you can talk to, even if it's just a gripe session. Like, oh my, all this, we got to do this and this and that. They will understand. If you turn into your spouse and say, I can't believe what they're trying to make me do. They want me to talk to people. Like, I don't know these people. Why would I want to talk to them? But I think because we're pushing and pushing, and now they're starting to do that midway through the program, they realize their peers are valuable instructors. They're valuable resources. And by the time they get to the end of the course, which I was just reading earlier today, it's amazing what they now think about collaborative work. And I know from experiences, getting a group of third graders to work together is really hard. It's really hard. Getting a group of high school kids to work together when they know these three kids, they're not very good academic kids, I don't want to work with them. I know how hard that is. I'm not saying it's an easy road, but when you're in this just in time learning, or I have a purpose for this learning, you find the people that are going to help you do that. And it just, your learning happens.
Yeah, it does. It's exciting when students realize that. And the challenge is getting them to move to that. We
Yeah.
also have a challenge in some of our programs where some students do part of their learning in another area and then they come to us sort of midway. And it's usually a shock. And their reaction is, Dr. Harapnik, you're not doing your job. You're not telling me
Yeah.
what I'm supposed to do. Well, you need to come up with a bit of a project and then build your ideas around that project. And then if you're going to do a podcast, you're addressing the key issue with that. Yeah, but what project should I
But
do?
what
Well,
do I do and
what
what's
do you
my
need to do in your
project?
environment, right?
Yeah.
Well, I came from the other program and they told me how I had to do everything. I don't know if that's always the case, but
Right.
um, it taking that individual responsibility is tough. And this has been going on for a very, very long time. And I use that Dr. Hrapnik or Dr. H, you're not doing your job, because I can think back to the early 2000s, still teaching face to face in one of the first times I was teaching in a master's program in education, where I did a midterm diagnostic and I had a student stand up at the back of the room, and she was furious. She was angry. Dr. Hrapnik, you're not doing your job. Oh, okay. Why is that? Well, you're making us do all this collaborative work, and you are making us read the textbook, and then we have to present it to each other. And we've got all these stupid projects that we have to work with other people, and that's really hard. And she went on, and I waited, and I said, I'm sorry, but what do you expect me to do? And then I didn't say anything. I waited. It seemed like an hour, but no, it only was about 20 seconds. On another side of the room, a person said, "Well, a little bit more sheepishly, they said, aren't we supposed to be learning this stuff? Shouldn't we be reading the book, and shouldn't we be learning how to work together? Because when we go out into the field as teachers,
Oh.
this is what we're going to need to do." And then another student stepped up and says, "Well, no, we need to be told. Well, I'm a straight A student, and
Yeah.
I don't want anything to jeopardize my GPA. And unless I'm told exactly what to do, I'm afraid that I'm not going to get the grades I deserve." Oh,
Afraid.
okay. And then
Failure.
somebody else says, "Well, yeah, but aren't we supposed to be learning? And the grades, if you do the learning, the grades will come." And then the room kind of erupted into a little bit of debate, and people took sides, and it it was sort of my first experience almost over 20 years ago seeing that. And over the years, by helping students to learn how to learn, they don't like me initially. And if you were to listen to some of the podcasts from 5317, I've had some students that, oh, we hated Dr. H at the beginning. He just drove us crazy. He just made us do all these things. And it wasn't until the second or third course where we realized he really cared about us and he wanted us to learn and to take ownership. But initially, it's so hard because that's not what we do, right? So I've taken the responsibility to help people to move into this learner's mindset, to help people move into taking the personal professional learning approach, because I'm trying to change the world one learner at a time. And that means I have to help people to learn how to learn. Now, I still prepare people for the test and for their assignments. You can get good grades, but when people don't need me anymore, I know I've done my job.
Exactly. And I think that fear of failure, like I can't fail, I can't get a B, it freezes them from moving forward, from experimenting, trying, testing. It's just like, no, I know if I use that code, it's not going to work. Okay, then don't use that one. There's a billion more you can pick from. Well, which one do I pick? I don't know. Start in the middle. No, start at the top. No, just pick one. Which one logically makes sense to you? What do you want it to do? And then pick one that logically makes sense. If it doesn't work, there'll be the next one. But tell me which one. I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And you walk away and they don't want to wait. And then they start, and then you hear, I did it, it works. Okay, what did you do? Well, I just tried this one. Oh, and it works? That's great. Okay, what's the next problem? Like, I don't celebrate it too much, and they're like, but it works. Okay, but what's our final destination? Where is this robot supposed to end up? What's it supposed to end up? Oh, I see. I got to do more. Yeah, but you're on the road. You're on the right track now. Look how far it's going. Look what it's doing. Oh, yeah, all right, I can do this. And a little confidence grows and a little confidence. So we've moved from that, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to pick, I don't want to try and be wrong, to it's okay to try and be wrong because I'll try something else. That's where I guess that's part of that learner's mindset as well. They've got to shift to that growth mindset and just try.
It's so important, and we're not the only ones to say this. And there's a ton of research that I can point to, and I have it all over my website. But most recently, Justin Reich, in his book, it's called "Failure to Disrupt." There's a long subtitle. He made the argument that the problems that a lot of people have had with remote learning or online learning because of COVID is that most students are so dependent on being disciplined, being monitored, given a very direct instruction. And when you move online, you have to actually give the learner a little bit more responsibility. And most learners don't have that capacity. They don't have the responsibility to take care of themselves, to monitor themselves, to control themselves. And more importantly, they've lost that investigative nature, that inquisitivistic nature, and they tell me what I need to do. And when you're doing that online, it's not the most effective way, because online learning, what we are doing through this session right now, is dialogue, it's communication, it's connection. You don't use your Zoom or Teams or whatever tool you're using to deliver content. No, you don't. You use your online connection time to make those meaningful connections, to coach, to guide, to explore, to see the wonderful things that people have created. And so Reich made the argument that the problem he's seen is that most of our students have become dependency-based learners, and not enough people have got that autodidactic capacity to learn on their own and learn independently. Now, learning on your own,
spoon-fed?
Yeah, I'll go there.
Right?
Yeah, there used
I
to
like
be
my
spoon
word,
fed.
spoon-fed.
Yeah. But here's the key thing. When I say autodidact or learning on your own, what we've just talked about, most people who learn on their own aren't alone. They tap into their learning networks. They're communicating, they're texting, they're looking at forums, discussions. When my son Caleb was running into a problem, he's all over the forums. He will tackle anything, and there's different forums, and he'll spend time communicating, and he's looking for one key solution to a problem. And he was installing, he bought my wife some really high end lights for her Toyota, and he had to install them, and he was cutting into the electrical system, and he ran into one problem, and he just couldn't get this to work, and he got it working. There was one little thing, and he did a bunch of exploration, and then he found out that he had to actually ground an extra little wire in a special way, and he found that answer in the forum, right? But because he knew that this was the last variable he had to fix, it took a bit of time. It was frustrating, but he solved it, right? And that's that capacity to ask questions, explore, investigate, and then connect with everybody. So when you're learning self-directed, you're actually probably collaborating more so than if you're learning in a dependency model. Because usually the dependency model is you're just doing what you're being told to do.
Connect
So if
the
you really
dots.
want to collaborate, you have to connect with other people if you want to learn in this way. So there's
Well,
a
and
bit
you
of a
have to be
trade-off.
willing to share as well. You can't just take the information. You've got to be able to share some information. Even if that's, I've done this reading, but I just don't understand what it's talking about. Even letting yourself be vulnerable, if you will. Like, don't, you got to start somewhere. Do your due diligence, prep yourself, but then, maybe you just have that question of what's next?
I'm going to go into another story about sharing. And you've touched on something I think is really important. And we've talked about this. When you are able to solve some problems and you've connected to a community and other people helped you to solve that, we fall into this notion of reciprocity. We want to give back, right? So, Robert Cialdini, in his book about how to influence and how we make decisions, he talks about reciprocity. And when somebody's helped you, you want to give back. You do. And I have been hanging out at my son's shop, or my other son who is a professional biker, and I've been hanging out with him at his shop or other places. And people will come in and say, Levi or Caleb, they'll ask a question. What do you think about this? And I did this, and I ran into this problem. And then Caleb will say, oh, man, been there. You know what the problem is? And then he'll look to somebody else that he's talking to. Yeah, oh, man, when I did that, that was just drove me crazy. Here it is. And they're going, oh man, you mean that's all it's going to take to fix that? Yeah, yeah. It's kind of it's a glitch, or maybe it's a feature, or it's a defect with that particular derailleur.
Right.
It's a problem with this particular suspension system. Whatever it is that they're working on, because they are professionals, they've learned a lot more, but they're willing to give back. And actually, that's sometimes the most enjoyable part of the day. So my son laments this. He says, "Oh, Dad, I just love talking to people, helping them out, but it takes a lot of time. I don't get paid for it. I mean, he's a businessman, right? But he loves doing it because it makes him feel good that he can help somebody else. And as hard and harsh the world is, we've got a potential world war going on. I think there is this capacity in humanity to want to help each other out, right?
I definitely think community wants to help each other out, and a lot of
Yep.
us just don't know how to go about it. And some of us do have that mindset of, well, I have to charge for my information. However, I feel that when you do help somebody out, your payment actually comes back twofold because you're a little more of an expert and you shared something, so others are find you credible, so they're going to come and use your services. So you do get payback.
Well, or payback, or you're paying it forward.
Or
Right?
paying it forward, yeah,
Yeah. Think of that
absolutely.
notion. I
Well,
remember
you
seeing.
pay it forward to get paid back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The serendipity comes into play and all those wonderful things. And I know I'm a little bit of people, if you've been listening to me, know I'm a delusional optimist, right? I look at the positive side of things because we have an opportunity to really improve the world around us if we're willing to take some risks and to do so. And so maybe we're paying it forward with our discussions, these videos, right? We're
Yeah, because I don't think
encouraging
you're
people.
paying me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Neither one of us are getting paid to do this. That's right. I'm not getting paid. You're not getting paid, but we're
That's
paying it
right.
forward.
So,
Yeah.
but I think it's important for, like, I know when I first joined virtual networks, I was very hesitant to share anything because I didn't want anybody to think like I didn't know what I was talking about. And then I'm reading and listening and reading, and I'm going, really? I know way more than what's going across here. All right, next time something comes up, I'm going to share. And then I like got all these things. Oh, yeah, well, how did you do that? So why did you do that? And what happened when that? And I'm like, so all of a sudden the tables turned. and I became more of the expert in this new group. And I'm thinking, okay, we just all want to learn from each other. And then somebody would like move above me, if you will, and they would get the attention. It just kind of, and attention, that's not really a good word, but the conversation, the need to know whatever was being in through the threads. But if you don't share, no one knows.
Yeah.
So you got to get out there. You got to not be afraid to take that step, but do your due diligence.
Yeah. It is interesting when you are collaborating with people in the forums or in a kind of a public type of a setting that
Right.
the cream will rise to the top, so to speak, that certain people who've got a level of expertise in a certain area. And it's not uncommon to, read a forum or see a discussion going on and somebody saying, well, you know what? Sue is an expert when it comes to this. You might want to send her a message, right?
Right.
Or, because different people have different levels of expertise. If we were talking about video editing, I've been playing around with DaVinci Resolve for quite a while, and I stopped working with Final Cut Pro. And right now, I haven't worked with it for the last couple iterations, and so I probably wouldn't be able to help anybody out, right? But I'm getting pretty good with DaVinci Resolve, or I still dabble with Adobe Premiere a little bit, but I'm maybe one iteration behind. So there are times where I'll go, yeah, I'm using this now. Maybe you want to talk to Sue about that. And so the collaboration that comes about by learning how to learn on your own, being responsible, adopting that learner's mindset, taking ownership of your professional learning, and moving away from the dependency model is so important. And as educators, which is what we are, it's our profession. This is our personal professional responsibility. If
It's our
I'm not
passion.
doing this, I'm not doing my job, right? We when you are an educator or any profession that you have, if you're not staying up to date, it's like, do you want to go to a
Yeah.
doctor who is dependent on somebody for training? Uh,
Or looks through pages instead of a digital up to date
oh yeah,
resource.
yeah. Oh man. Well, that's interesting. If a doctor doesn't walk into the examination room, when we still could go to an examination room, although that's coming back here in Canada. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah.
if they didn't have a laptop or an iPad with them, I wouldn't trust them, and I would go. I'd walk out, right? Because I'm sorry, how many thousands of drugs are you dealing with? How many different issues are you dealing with? I've got a pocket full of articles from PubMed in my hand, figuring out, is this my problem? And if you don't, no, I'm an informed person, right? And so if you aren't willing to be equally informed, how are you going to help me,
Right.
right? So as professionals, it's our responsibility. If we want to take a leadership role with technology, or if we want to take a leadership role with being digital educators and digital leaders, it's our responsibility to take ownership of those learning opportunities and explore and experiment and tap into communities and tap into resources, and ultimately help to convey the message of learning how to learn and to take advantage of this amazing digital world that we live in. It's never been a better time to be a learner. It's never been an easier or better time to be an educator. Right.
Yeah.
So, but we have to step up and take ownership of it. Interesting. Hopefully we've paid it forward today. What do you think?
Well, I think we have talked about a lot of the things that bother me. If you look at it from the opposite point of view, those that don't take initiative, those that don't prepare, and then they ask questions and they want to. It's kind of like that troubled kid, the kid in the classroom that creates all the problems. You spend 90% of your time trying to get him under control, get him organized, get him so that he doesn't keep interrupting and stopping the learning that's supposed to be going on. So when I look at that side of things, I think we definitely presented what should be happening because I get very frustrated when I get questions that are either in the instructions point blank or I get something turned in not in the manner that we need to assess it in, broken links,
Yeah. Yeah.
just whatever. So like I'm thinking on both sides of the continuum here, and we just need to learn and solve basic issues and then ask questions. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask them. So
I,
yeah,
I
I
think
think we
you're
did a pretty
taking
good
us
job.
into a difficult realm that we do need to address, and that is, as educators, we can perpetuate a dependency model of instruction by creating checklists, by delivering content, by requiring our students to just give information back. Okay, this by spoon feeding, we're perpetuating this problem. Okay, and so we have a choice as educators. We do have a choice.
Hmm.
We actually have a lot more control of our classroom, our learning environments than a lot of people think we do, because you can actually deal with the same subject matter and create an environment where students are engaged and they take ownership, they explore, and you coach and guide. Or you can create an environment where students are controlled and they're given the information and they have to feed it
Right.
back to you in a certain way. So there's two ways of doing things. There really are. And so I think what we need to do is encourage educators who have the capacity to change this in their
Hmm.
learning environments, which means that they themselves, when they are in a learning environment, they need to become they have to take personal responsibility for their own professional learning. They have to step up and explore, because if they can't do it themselves, they're not going to model that in their learning environments,
Right.
and they're going to perpetuate some of the challenges that we've talked about. Now, you're talking about some of the kids that you deal with in kind of the K to 12 environment. Now, I'm in
Well,
higher ed.
sometimes I'm talking about them up here too in
Now,
higher ed.
yeah, that too. But and the challenge we face with there is that a lot of our students who are educators can slip into this dependency model because it's safe, it's easy, it's what they know, right? That's the way the system
Yes.
works. Don't change the system. Dr. Rapnick, that's not fair. That isn't how school works. This is how it works. Uh, sure, school works that way, but you're in this program to learn, right?
Well, I would say back to them, does school really work?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But that's a whole nother cast.
yeah, that's a whole other issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we have an opportunity to help improve the system by encouraging
Hmm.
people to take a bit of ownership, explore and experiment. And I think that's really what we're saying. Encourage people to start moving towards and adopting that learner's mindset. It starts with a growth mindset. You have to start shifting from the fixed mindset thinking to growth mindset thinking, and then you need to sort of take another step further to take a look at problems and challenges as opportunity for growth, right? So it's
Opportunities.
the growth mindset is a start, but you've got to keep on going, and it has to really envelop you. And then,
Hmm.
there's a point where, because my boys grew up in this type of environment, there are times when my older son Levi was looking at this just totally rusted out truck, and his attitude was, "Oh, how hard is it to fix that? Oh, Levi, don't." So sometimes there's
Right.
a little bit too much delusional optimism. There's not enough realism, right? But guess what? He took on that project and realized just how hard it was. I'm never going to do that again. Life can be a good
Trial and
teacher.
error, right?
Yeah, trial and error.
That's a lot of learning. A lot of learning.
Actually, that is learning. That's experimentation, exploration. You know, the again, the world we live in is so amazing, and we can learn so much, and we can do so much, and these devices that we take for granted, they've only been around. Think about it. Oh,
Not very long
yeah, not
when
long.
you think about it.
Oh, 08 for this level, but the late 90s for the
Hmm.
Blackberries, right? So
Yeah.
we've come a long way in the last 25 years, and it's just getting better and better. And
Absolutely.
the best technology is a technology that disappears. And as educators, it's our responsibility to focus on that learning, to bring people out, to encourage them to explore, to adapt, to overcome all those wonderful things. Because, you know, we can we can help people fulfill dreams that come into our classrooms and learning environments, or we can kind of discourage them
We
by
can we can
asking
get a
them to just be
colony on
individuals.
Mars,
Yeah, yeah,
but we got to be willing to take risks and problem solve.
yep. Well, I think we've
Yeah,
done enough to
no.
pay it forward today. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you again. I love these discussions, and it's always a pleasure. Thanks, Sue.
Oh, you're welcome. I had fun.